Back and bigger than ever. It's the Unofficial 40 from Soonerscoop.com. Now, here's the entire Sooner Scoop crew. Carrie, Josh, Eddie, and
George.
All right, we are back. It is time for the OU Texas Week version of the Unofficial 40 podcast right here on Soonerscoop.com. The U40 is brought to you by Schwab Meat Company, presented by Schwab Meat Company, the official hot dog of game days and NIL sponsor of Danny Stutzman this year. I know we had Schwab and their ad agency was in last week doing some more ads for some Thanksgiving stuff, and Billy Bowman was here, and Kobe McKenzie, and Kinsey Hansen, and Jada Coleman. Kinsey Hansen had the cutest dog. Did you guys get to play with the dog?
No, I didn't, but I did see it, and that thing looked amazing.
It was so cute. Anyway, Schwab Meat, they've been smoking the highest quality smoked meats, hot dogs, and sausages in Oklahoma City since 1912. You can find their products online at schwabmeat.com. You order over $75, you get with the promo code SoonerScoop, you get shipping for free, which could save you $100 or more in some cases. So thanks to Schwab. We'll talk to you more about them as we go along. But, boys, it's OU Texas Week, and I don't feel talked out of OU Texas Week at all because I think we've just kind of scratched the surface a little bit. I know you guys had Corby Davidson on a little bit earlier today. That's going to be airing here on the YouTube channel. But just so many things to get into this game, and I think, 14.5-point favorite. It was still there this morning last I checked, but, I mean, I should put some money on this game because I don't think there's any way in hell that this is a 2-touchdown game.
Now it will be because you said that.
Which usually is kind of one of those things. It's like in this game particularly, I think either side, and Oklahoma's been on the other side of this thing before where they've been the double-digit underdog or the double-digit favorite. And somehow, some way, and particularly over the last 10 years, I think it was Steve Sarkisian that noted it on Monday, it's been a one-score game, regardless of how lopsided or mismatched either side has been. So
I think 8 is the most, other than the Davis-Bevel game. I think since 2015,
right.
8 is the most,
the 49-0
biggest
game
difference.
I think a lot of people, it's bookended by two of maybe the best comebacks in Oklahoma history in the storied history of the Cotton Bowl. So it's definitely weird. I guess there's a part of me that still wonders, I think Texas is pretty good. I know that we've had this conversation here on the Unofficial 40 before that, just kind of where this Texas team is at this year. It's going to be super fascinating to see what both these teams can do coming out of a bye. And, obviously the way that Oklahoma won down at Auburn, I think that maybe you could try to build some momentum offensively out of that. But at the same time, it's the biggest thing for me going into the game is defensively. That looked like, as much as we talked about how much OU needed the bye week offensively to work on everything, get guys healthy, I think OU defensively needed that bye week as well. They had played two extremely physical games going into the bye week with Tennessee and Auburn.
George, I have one bone to pick with you here off the beginning. I am not one of these people that think anything that I can do will affect a football game. I'm not a megalomaniac. I mean, all you people out there who say, well, I didn't watch it from my favorite spot, or I wore the wrong underwear, or I should have, if I would have worn these socks, they would have won. You people are crazy. You are insane to think that you can control the outcome of a sporting event by what you do at home.
There's certain things that you can do to affect it. And, I think everybody has their...
Like what?
Like watching it from a certain spot in the living room and not moving unless Oklahoma's moving the ball. I think everybody has friends like that.
I believe in superstition.
Eddie is a Cubs fan, Terry. Do you know what he's been through? He 100% practiced these dark arts.
What price Hartman had to pay for you people out there?
Well, Alex Gonzalez.
Who was the kid in the...
Alex Gonzalez booted a 6-4-3 double play that would have got him out of the inning.
Nobody
ever talks about that.
Who was the kid that for the Orioles-Yankees game that before fan interference? Jeffrey Dahmer?
Jeffrey Dahmer would have eaten everybody in right field.
It was a monster. That's all. I work with an Oriole fan in the morning, so I thought it was Jeffrey Dahmer.
Jeffrey Mayer. Jeffrey Dahmer, I think, was eating people.
He was.
And possibly
heads
fucking
in jars.
Was he sexing him as well? It's him or the other guy that was. One of the cannibals, one of the great cannibals in our nation's history.
By the way, I did not watch, and I will never watch that Netflix special on Jeffrey Dahmer.
It's very interesting. Talk about a weird dude.
You've watched it.
Yeah, I heard it was super dark.
It's
very
super,
creepy.
super dark, but it actually was pretty good, all things considered.
Anyway, back on track
Jeffrey
here.
Mayer, though, yeah.
Jeffrey Mayer.
I remember like getting home from school and watching that on NBC. In fact, I think our boy Bob Costas was doing the game that night.
By the way, I feel like I've gotten all of my Josh. The pressure's on you today. I feel like I've gotten all my mistakes out yesterday in the conference room, just talking to the guys. I just completely forgot that Kendall Dolby broke his leg because I said something about we were planning for interviews, like who we should talk to. I was like, what about Kendall Dolby? I thought it was like, surely he's going to be back from that concussion lately. So I've had my old man syndrome moment. I know it's Jake Roberts. I know we're waiting on Deion Burks.
Oh, jeez.
Damn it!
Oh, no.
Deion Burks.
Maybe Daniel Brooks can show up. Oh, you could probably use his
Well,
speed.
that's the thing. We're talking about Daniel Brooks before the show because he's going to be part of the family business this week.
Well, no, we weren't. Not Daniel Brooks. We were talking about Kennedy Brooks.
Kennedy Brooks, yeah.
Oh, my God.
Daniel
You guys
Brooks was a running back. I
terrible.
remember that guy.
We got to get...
This is becoming an epidemic.
You guys
It's
are
not an epidemic.
so old.
It's not an epidemic.
We support
Just
you
a
guys.
little bit of names flying all over the place. We've been trying to book people for the family business all week, so it's been a week.
I'm
man.
excited with the group that they have coming in, though, or that's going to be joining them. I don't think they're coming into studio, but I am excited about that. There's some of
Let's just say it's a
who's who list
cornucopia of people who played in the OU Texas game
and have made massive plays
Yes.
in the OU Texas game.
We won't go too much further than that. Anyway, Josh, you've been kind of a downer this week. I don't know what's going on with you. If what OU did, tell me on the doll where OU hurt you this week, because you just seem to be very, I don't know, pessimistic about this game. I'm worried about your staff prediction.
I kind of am, guys. I feel like everybody's clinging on to, well, that things get crazy in this game. And it's not that it's untrue, but that can't be the substance for your belief in Oklahoma. Like, there has to be something you're buying into. And I think Oklahoma's defense can absolutely do a good job with Texas. I think Texas is too good and too well coached to just keep running that defense out there over and over again and expecting a different result. And I haven't seen anything from the offense that tells me that's not what's going to happen. Like, maybe in 2 weeks they fixed all this and everything's going to come together in perfect timing. And we've seen it. I'm not saying there's no room for that, but I don't know. That feels pretty pie in the sky to me.
Could I talk you into the idea that they've been so bad offensively that I don't think that they need to go? Obviously, like, if OU's going to win this game,
The bar is so low.
Kind of one of those things. Like, they probably need to play this into the lower 20s. I kind of
They
agree
can't
with
let
that
Texas
idea.
get into the 30s.
I would agree with that. Unless you get a pick six, unless you get some type of special team score, I think that they need to create some turnovers, which they've done. I would start here and try to talk you into it. Like, is OU good enough defensively, and has Texas in a way, would you say they're better or worse than they were offensively going into this game a year ago? Talking about Texas.
Oh, I don't think there's any question they're worse. I mean, they are not as skilled. I think at receiver, it's kind of like one trick. You know, like last year with Adonai Mitchell, you had a big guy. Jordan Whittington's a big physical dude. And obviously Xavier Worthy with his speed. Now it's kind of a lot of smaller, explosive guys. And don't get me wrong, I think Isaiah Bond's off to a really nice start. But, like, I don't think they have as many, hey, it's baseball season. It's October. I don't think they have as many pitches to throw at Oklahoma. Like, I don't think they have, and the running game's not what it was. That's my, if there's one thing I think Oklahoma can hang their hat on, I kind of think they can make Texas one-dimensional. Like, I kind of believe that. Now, if they can get enough stops, within that, I'm not sure. But, again, I agree. Like, and George and I were talking about that the other day. I think on both sides of the ball, Texas is not as good as they were last year. Like, they may be better fundamentally, but I don't think they have those special game-changing talents in as many places as they did last year.
Which is fascinating, because I think that you could say that about Texas offensive and defensively, that they might not be as good as they were a year ago, but I think they might be a better football team this year, this form.
Here's one thing that stands out to me, and you had Corby on, and you loaded me down with a bunch of B-roll, and a lot of times I'll sit there and I'll watch the B-roll just for like something as you guys are talking. So I'm watching it over and over again, and I will say this: watching last year's game, like OU has traded, they've traded some positions, some good, some bad, but like especially on the defensive line, like they didn't have. Last year they've traded a Jordan Kelly for a Jaden Jackson. They've still got a JT Terry. Almost screwed that one
DJ
up.
Terry.
DJ Terry.
You did screw
We'll
it up.
allow that, though.
What did I say? DT Terry?
You said JT Terry.
Dejan. I know that his name is Dejan. So
It's fair.
here, change my bedpan while you're at it. Also,
Well, I don't know if we'll do that. We'll do a lot of things. I don't know if we can do that.
but in the secondary, they don't have a Gentry Williams, which he had the big pick last year. You lose a Kendall Dolby. You don't have him. He was a big part of the goal line stand along with Deshaun McCullough, who you get back. But I think overall, now offensively, you don't have even a Jalil Farouk. You don't have a Nick Anderson. You don't have a Dylan Gabriel.
Putting those highlights together, man, it is just it really hit me. We talked about it at the time, but Jalil Farouk was unbelievable last year in the Cotton Bowl.
Well, and the thing is, you don't have a Drake Stoops either.
And Andrell Anthony, before he got hurt, was great.
Got hurt in the game.
Got hurt in the third quarter of the game.
So, you give up a lot on offense, but you get a little bit on defense. You didn't have Kip Lewis like you have Kip Lewis now.
He made a
and I think Kobe McKenzie also could be an X factor defensively for them.
Sure. It's crazy to remember back. And, Josh, I don't know if you remember this, but you go back and watch the game. I was almost shocked to find out who the leading tackler was last year in the Cotton Bowl. Do you remember for OU?
Well, I think I only remember because two things. I think you brought this up during the Game Day Rewind on Monday.
Yeah, on Monday. That's right.
And then I literally was reminded because Toby put it up on Twitter a little while ago, and somebody, to their credit, gave us credit. Like I heard it on Scoop.
Here's the bottom line, guys. In my opinion, if Oklahoma wins this game, you're walking out of there saying Michael Hawkins is the dude of the future. Like he absolutely, like, I don't think Oklahoma can win this football game with just average quarterback play.
No, he's going to have to carry it on his shoulders. He has
to be like, you have to walk out of there and say, that is an all-time moment from an Oklahoma quarterback. Like that's the type of performance I think you need from him.
Can I push back just a little bit and say, like, if OU were to able to win on Saturday, I think we go back and go, there was a reason this was the starting five that you talked about all, preseason into August with the offensive line.
Yeah.
Like those guys they're gonna have to play their best game of the year.
Yep.
For anything to happen with Mike Hawkins.
I think you're going to have to get something from Taylor Tatum. You're going to have to get something on the ground from Michael Hawkins.
That was the thing last year, too. They ran for 205 yards or something, which was mind-blowing at the time that they were going to be able to run the football.
And that's one thing that you're giving up. Dylan Gabriel ran the ball really well last year. Michael Hawkins is an improvement over Dylan Gabriel when it comes to running the ball. But I take Dylan as a passer. Right now, at this point in his career. And I take his weapons because, you start to list it out on paper, and the threats for Oklahoma, they start with, God, who do they even start with? Do you start with J.J. Hester? Do you start with Bowers Sharp?
Thompson.
You start with Brennan Thompson because he had 2 catches against Auburn early and didn't have anything else.
I know, but I think that he's, at this point, J.J. had a nice game, but Brennan's at least shown you some stuff throughout the year, but it's going to be Brennan and JJ, I think, most of the game. It does sound like we're going to see more Jacoby Johnson this week. I don't know what that looks like, and I kind of went out on a limb, a week ago or 2 weeks ago before the Auburn game saying that he's going to have over a catch. I actually think that you're going to see him actually play in this game.
We're sitting here at 1:10 in the afternoon in central Oklahoma. What time does the injury report come out today?
Like 7:15.
So, 7:15-ish.
It's going to be really interesting to see if Deion Burks is questionable or out.
I'm
starting to think he's not going to play.
Just straight up listed as out on Wednesday night?
I don't know. I don't think he's practiced.
Sure.
So I wouldn't be shocked if it's a doubtful tonight.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be questionable or doubtful tonight.
I think when Brent's been asked about it, he's tried to leave that open, but he's clearly slammed the door on any hope that you're going to see a Nick Anderson or a Jill Farouk. And he's kind of included Deion in that group a little bit.
Yeah. I think it's more likely he plays against South Carolina.
And if
that'd be good news, at least they're gonna get him back at some point, right?
If they felt like they were going to get him back, they probably wouldn't be talking about a Jacoby Johnson package.
Correct. And maybe you see more Petaway. I think part of the problem with Petaway is he's screwed up a few times, I think, in terms of what they're asking him to do on certain plays, but maybe, the bye week they found something with him. We didn't really see him against Auburn, so there's
what I love
there.
about Petaway, though, is it's the same thing we saw with the throw to Bauer Sharp over the middle. Michael Hawkins is really good at throwing the ball over the middle, like reading those windows and being able to fit the ball between defenders. Like his arm angle changes. Like I think you don't often see quarterbacks like one of their strengths is, threading the needle over the middle. But like Petaway
especially a young guy.
Yeah, Petaway had that one-handed catch against Tennessee where he just kind of snagged it. It was a little out in front of him. Like I think Petaway's a good fit with Michael Hawkins. That's what worries me about him not playing.
Yeah, and if you're going to be, basically still banged up at wide receiver, you need somebody like a Brennan Thompson to show up and have a massive game. And, we've, I guess, seen it in like very, very small glimpses and very, very small sample sizes. I think Bauer Sharp's going to have a big game, too, from a tight end perspective and just a pass catcher. You can say whatever you want about him from a blocking standpoint, which is probably not very positive. On the flip side of that, he's been really good in the pass game. And,
the other thing about Brennan Thompson, the passes he was throwing were out in the flats. He didn't go deep. The J.J. Hester throw was the first time we saw Seth Luttrell let a quarterback just rear back and throw the ball downfield since Jackson kind of, he had that early one to Jaleel, and then he hadn't had another pass. I mean, that was the biggest play of the year, right?
He had that intermediate throw to Brennan Thompson as well against Houston.
He pushed the ball down the field. It just was never even close to being completed.
Remember talking about Jackson?
Yeah,
they landed in McLean County.
No, that's what I'm saying. And then they kind of just gave up on it, and you didn't see it as much in the offense. But the fact that he completed that pass to J.J. Hester, if you don't go out there with a game plan to at least try that on your first couple of drives, I'll be right there with some of you calling for people's heads.
I think you also want to see them schematically change some things. Like, I think going into the Auburn game, it was clear they were very conservative.
Yes.
They didn't open the playbook up. They were just like, just don't turn the ball over. I think this is a game where you open it up. You had 2 weeks to prepare. You could put in some new things, some quarterback run game stuff I think we're going to see this week. And I'm slowing the game down. And I feel like I've said that every single week now, but I am absolutely slowing the game down. You saw Jeff Lebby in Mississippi State a couple weeks ago. That's what they did. They were huddling. They were running that clock down, and they hung in there. I mean, and Mississippi State's probably the worst team in the SEC. They were in that football game in the first half. And if Oklahoma can do that, slow the game down, move the ball a little bit, get some points, even if that's just field goals, then you can be in this thing, come second half.
It's very much a situation of success for Oklahoma offensively on Saturday. It's not as much of going and scoring every time you get the ball, but at least get a first down. At least put together a 6, 7, 8 play drive. Maybe you do have to
play
punt,
field position.
You're playing field position. Luke Elzinga's been really good, and you can't let this defense sit and roast out there all day. And quite literally, with as hot as it's going to be, that's kind of like something that's going to be a little bit of an underlying theme, I think, throughout the game, maybe on both sides. That, I know that Norman and Austin have been pretty damn hot over the last couple months, but for some reason, it just feels like that stadium is always hotter than what it usually is, or what it normally is, or what the temperature tells you. You can't let that defense just sit out there and have to bail you out time and time again.
No, and that's the key to this thing, if you're going to get a win, Josh.
Yeah, I was just going to say, if they're not going to do it now, if they're not going to play to what this team's strengths are, I don't think they're ever going to do it. Because like George said, we've been saying it for weeks. This is a defensive team. You got to play some ball control. You're going to have to eat up some clock. You're going to have to play in a way that is not familiar to Oklahoma fans, or any of us that have covered this team. You've got to do some things differently. And if they're not going to do it this week, I don't know when they would. I just, because you're right. I mean, it's not just that it fits the game plan. It's the temperature. It's the team you're playing. It's everything about it. It makes sense to keep the ball out of Quinn Ewers' hands. Again, it's just one of those things where it seems like there's this reluctance at times to just be like, okay, this is our best path. Like, this is the best way to win this game. Because last week against Auburn, they didn't, or 2 weeks ago against Auburn, they didn't do it, but they kind of backdoored their way into it where the defense made a play and got them out there, and they got one big play, a big shot down the field, and it kind of made up the gap. But they never showed any intention of saying, like, we want to keep our defense, off the field as much as we possibly can. And then maybe when they are out there and they're fresh, they can make some plays for us.
One thing that Brent Venables and Zach Alley are going to be looking at, looking at him hard. Hopefully the vision is good, like it would be if you went to Enjoy Vision, is Quinn Ewers, because he is coming back into a game after several weeks off. He may not be 100% healthy, and they did a great job attacking him at the beginning of last year. So hopefully, Eddie, when they get in that film room, they're seeing a lot of things when they look at Quinn Ewers and what they could be doing.
And that would be because of our good friends over at Enjoy Vision, which is the best laser vision center in Oklahoma City. It's not even close. The combination of mind-blowing technology, experienced eyeball surgeons, and exceptional patient care was life-changing for me. What our friends over at Enjoy are doing for the Unofficial 40 listener, they're giving $400 off LASIK. All you got to do is go to enjoywithme.com. That is the letter NJOY withme.com, and use promo code U40 if you're interested in taking advantage of this offer. $400 off LASIK. Enjoy Vision. This is where you LASIK.
Will it help you navigate the traffic going to the fair?
I would hope so. I'm slightly optimistic that maybe the traffic situation won't be as bad as the paranoia and anxiety that comes with trying to get to an 11 a.m. kickoff. Usually not, of the clearest of mind after Friday night in Dallas, but with the 2:30 kickoff, maybe everybody's going to try to get there. Not necessarily a little bit later, but maybe not everybody's going to try to get there at the same time.
I'm going to say this would be my prediction is after many, many years of just going to OU Texas, not as a journalist, reporter, that I would probably, in my younger days, I would probably party even harder on Friday night knowing that it was a 2:30 kick.
Oh, yeah.
And I would be just as hungover, if not maybe more so.
Yeah, it might go the other way where you're not thinking about having to get up that early and then you just go all out.
Like all of a sudden it's like, it's 2:30 and you're like, let's go to 4.
I could see that. Well, this body doesn't see 3 a.m. or 4 very often anymore. We used to be able to, but I don't think I'd be a very pleasant person, especially with the temperatures that are expected on Saturday down in Dallas.
This body woke up about 3 a.m. sitting on my couch just because I've fallen asleep. That's how I
think that's
am
the way
up
to
at
do it,
3 a.m.
The baseball's been really
days.
good over the last couple nights. It's been crazy how much baseball I've been able to watch with the bye week last week, and then the games and the start times this week have been pretty favorable. But
it's not matching up well for me. The Royals start at 6 o'clock, and I'm going to be in the edit bay at 6 o'clock. So maybe it'd be nice just to be able to sit and watch a whole Royals game. But
I think there's a slight chance of maybe some precip this evening in Kansas City.
Delay it a
little bit.
I would be
maybe
down
not
for that.
too much, though. I think tonight's the night. You got to win tonight. Can't let this thing get back to New York.
New York is old and busted. I'm feeling better about that series.
Oh, boy.
I'm not a megalomaniac. I'm not going to jinx anything.
Seth Lugo's been really good.
Yes.
He's been really good. Just with
Anyway, back to Quinn Ewers.
Yeah, that's yes.
I mean, sitting out this much time, knowing that Arch Manning hasn't reinvented the position in his absence or anything, but he's been solid. It's just such a weird game to come back in because the momentum swings. I mean, we've talked a lot about it. We were talking about the scores in this game, the schedule, all that stuff. But the momentum swings are real in this thing. And I think if you're Texas, you go with Quinn Ewers, you got to stick with Quinn Ewers, even if it's something like, I think the worst thing that they could do to either one of those quarterbacks is have a switch, which, look, we've all seen a quarterback switch mid-game this year. We've seen it, and we've seen Spencer Rattler get yanked for Caleb Williams. Quinn Ewers would have to play an awful game, and OU would have to get into a pretty sizable lead, I think, for us to have to see a quarterback change.
I'll be interested to talk to Joe Cook about this, and he'll be on our game day preview this week. Just like, how bad would things have to go for Texas offensively for them to go, okay, let's see what Arch can do. Can he give us a little bit more with his legs? I'm interested to see if they were to get to that point.
Like if he had the game he had a year ago.
Ewers?
Yeah, where he had 2 interceptions in the first half.
Yeah, but he responded really well.
Yeah,
I think people forget.
Didn't he complete like 25 passes in a row or something?
It was something crazy.
He was, and I just don't think that there's really a controversy there. I think that it's going to be Quinn the whole way through. I mean, unless he just, pulls a Jackson Arnold and is throwing lateral passes, I just don't think that's going to happen. I do think that Oklahoma and its front 7 can have some success in getting after him a little bit. I think this Texas offensive line is better than it was a year ago, but I just believe that Brent and Zach Alley are going to dial some stuff up to be able to get after him and really test him. But I don't think we're going to see, maybe there's like a special package for Arch or something, but I don't think you're going to see like a quarterback change mid-game. If that happens, then Oklahoma's playing extremely well.
Sure. It is interesting too, just we talk about the Oklahoma wide receiver position and how just depleted that thing is. The same to a certain extent could be said for Texas and just what they're doing at running back with all the injuries that they've had. They've struggled at times to be able to run the football, and maybe you can make them one-dimensional. Like that's one thing that Oklahoma has been able to do here in 21 and then last year. They've gotten after the quarterback. And when you look at the numbers from last year, the 5 sacks, 10 tackles for loss, they made them play in predictable passing downs. Again, Ewers did have some success. I think Oklahoma fans are probably going to be pretty happy that Jordan Whittington and Xavier Worthy aren't on that sidelines anymore with both of them going. They combined for over half of the receptions a year ago. They had 32 receptions. I think Worthy and Whittington were responsible for 18 of them, and they both went over 100 yards. It will be interesting, though, to see what not just Brent Venables and Zach Alley can draw up. How can you create pressure or force pressure for Ewers? And when you put him in some pressurized situations, he has been able to turn the football over.
Well, I think it's also going to be really interesting how they match up with Isaiah Bond, because that is their one guy on offense. They don't have as many playmakers, but Isaiah Bond is damn good. And I wonder who draws that assignment. Is it going to be a Kenai Walker or Des Malone? Does an Eli Bowen get a lot more run this week as a speed guy that can maybe hang with Isaiah Bond? So that to me is the matchup. I think Oklahoma can win the line of scrimmage some in this game up front, but they have to be able to be sound on the back end and not give up some of those explosive plays that we saw them give up against Auburn and Tennessee.
I think there's so much that we don't know about this Texas team. I mean, I know Corby was talking about it when you guys had him on. But, the Michigan win is less impressive by the week. They are just not a good offense, and they can't do anything but run the ball. They've lost to Washington since they've lost to Texas. I think what Brent Venables can do in this game because of their running back situation is play a 5 or a 6-man front and dedicate more people into the secondary, a little bit like what they did with Tennessee. And then you saw Arkansas duplicate that and had success against Nico and that offense. And it's just you've had all these teams that have scored all these points, and I don't know if there's an argument to be made for non-Power 4 teams being worse than they've ever been because of NIL. Maybe that's I think you could look across the board and say, a lot of people got their asses kicked in non-conference this year in ways that made a lot of teams look like juggernauts. And then when they've gotten into conference play, they've regressed and they've come back. I mean, Texas scored 35 against Mississippi State.
Yep.
And I think most people think that they are the worst team in the SEC. And they had a backup quarterback because Shapen got knocked out for the season the week before. So I mean, to me, there's a lot of questions about this Texas team. And I'm not saying that's your reason to hope and hang on. I know Josh is like, what a stupid reasoning, Kerry Murdoch. But I just feel like this Texas team has not been tested like they're going to be tested on Saturday in a lot of areas.
I think we know a heck of a lot more about Oklahoma than we do Texas. Like, I think we kind of know
Texas
what
has played one SEC game so far.
I know. I think we know what Oklahoma is in a lot of ways. Now, can Michael Hawkins, change some of that? And he's kind of the, maybe the X factor, the unknown for Oklahoma. Sure. But they're still going to have a lot of issues on offense at times. They're not going to be able to move the ball at times. You know what you're getting from them defensively. They're going to be really sound. They're going to create some turnovers, get some pressure, things like that. You know what they're doing on special teams.
They have to not have 9 penalties in this game.
Right. I don't know what Texas looks like in a close football game. They've yet to play a close football game in the second half. And if Oklahoma's in this game in the second half, what does that look like? And I think that, Corby said it on our show. Texas, and as good as they are this year, and as good as they've been at times in the past, they do have an Oklahoma problem. Like, they haven't been able to perform well in this game in big moments. So, and I don't think that plays anything maybe into this one, and I think that there's probably a lot of motivation from this group on Texas's side because of what happened a year ago. But I think that you could walk out of this saying, maybe Texas isn't as good as people thought, or they are. And like, we're going to know what Texas is not only this week, but next week when they play Georgia.
One of the big things that happened in this game a year ago, and it didn't come out till after the game, but it was Danny Stutzman's pregame speech about, Oklahoma only fears God, Texas fears Oklahoma, or maybe it was the other way around. I can't remember. Sold a buttload of T-shirts and all that stuff. And he's been, as far as his year has gone, he's been more of a supporting cast type guy than a leading actor. And I think a lot of that's by design, but he has, he's got the green sticker on his helmet. He's making all the calls out there. He's getting people in the right, spaces. But you wonder, like, there's going to be so much shit talking before this game. I think, coming out of the tunnels and stuff. I guarantee Danny Stutzman is going to be enemy number one for Texas fans in the stands after last year. And it's going to be interesting to see how he responds, because is he going to finally have one of those 14, 15 tackle games on Saturday? I don't know if this shapes up, with the talk about the running game being what it is. Maybe this is more of a Robert Spears Jennings or a Billy Bowman type, leading tackler performance. But I will say this, Danny Stutzman, getting taken care of by our buddies over at Schwab Meat Company. They are endorsing him with their NIL money. They have the Got That Dog in Them commercial that you've probably seen. And Schwab Meat is the official hot dogs of game day. They've been smoking the highest quality smoked meats, hot dogs, and sausages in Oklahoma City since 1912. Look, they're doing free shipping on online orders over $75 with code SoonerScoop. You guys that have done our food deals, you know how expensive that shipping can be, whether it's a shrimp or factor or whatever. It gets really expensive. You could save like almost $100 depending on where you are or more with the promo code SoonerScoop. So just go to their website, schwabmeat.com, and look at all their fine products, sausages, meats, and make your order of over $75. Use that promo code SoonerScoop at checkout, and you get free shipping. I mean, that's almost impossible to beat. You can also find Schwab products online at schwabmeat.com at On Cue. As I've said before, if you find that brisket Schwab dog, get it. 7-Eleven loves travel stops, roller grills. Most people don't realize it, but those are Schwab dogs. And most Oklahoma grocery stores. The brick chili's really good. I don't know if you guys ever get that. But go check them out. schwabmeat.com, the presenting sponsor of the Unofficial 40 podcast for the rest of the 2024 season. Okay, Josh, let's just throw it to you because, I mean, we've kind of thrown out stuff that really interests us about the game. Let's talk a little bit about the offensive line because I think, now that you have Jake Taylor relatively healthy, it seems like a game where this offensive line is ready to finally move forward and show progress.
Yeah, if they can find a way to be the group, if they've really made progress, and I thought Auburn did show some growth. To me, a big part of it, Kerry, is can they put themselves in positions to have success? Like, I felt like all the running up the middle against Tennessee and Auburn was you have to do it to a point. You have to have, you have to keep a defense honest. You have to do all those things. We understand that. At the same time, when they found success over the last two games running, it was invariably outside. Like, they ran better outside than anywhere else. And I think they've got to commit to that. They've got to have something that says, we're going to run some toss. We're going to do some stuff like that. I mean, whether it's counter, whatever you want to do, find a way to get your guys out in space because whether the offensive line is, fully healthy and ready to go, which it seems like they are as much as they've been, I just don't think it's a group that's going to make its living running right at good defensive lines. Like, I don't think that's where their bread's going to be buttered. So you got to do some other stuff. And I think there's stuff out there. I think there's stuff wide. I think maybe that's part of my frustration and why I'm kind of like, what are we talking about here? Because there's been this reluctance to take in new information to me. Like, oh, okay, this is who we are. This is what we're going to do. And damn if it works or damn if it doesn't. And that's kind of where I'm at with it, is I think there are things that can work for this offense, but I haven't seen any indication they're going to do those things.
Let me ask you, I don't know if you've broken down or started working on Under the Hood or not, but what is your impression of this defensive line versus the defensive line last year for Texas? I mean, we all know Colin Simmons is a fantastic young player on the edge, but are they just a shade? Are they just a level down, or are they getting to being the defensive line they were a year ago? Like, how do you see that? Because I mean, OU has it. I mean, Tennessee as a defensive line, Auburn as a defensive line. As you said, the offensive line seemed to get better against Auburn, and I saw Gavin Sawchuk almost break a long run in that game, which you haven't seen a lot of this year. Like, I wonder if there is some type of a edge here that OU can go toe-to-toe with them on the defensive line. Maybe Gavin Sawchuk becomes a guy that's an X factor in this game.
To me, guys, I think they are clearly better on the edge than they were a year ago. I think they're more explosive. You mentioned Colin Simmons. He true freshman, got 4 sacks. A guy like Anthony Hill, who plays a lot of linebacker, but in certain situations, they're bare front and stuff like that. They'll line him up outside and let him, really chase after the quarterback. And Anthony's a guy, was a 5-star recruit, was a big-time guy. We covered him in high school. He's a special talent, much like Colin Simmons. But up the middle, they are solid but not spectacular. Last year where it was like, how do you deal with Byron Murphy and Tavondre Sweat coming, right at the core of your offensive line? That's a problem. How do you make that all work? This year it's on the edge. Michael Tarquin and Jake Taylor in run situations, I think they may have some edges there because they're going to be bigger, a little more physical. But when, that's why Oklahoma's got to avoid 3rd and long as much as they can, because you get in a 3rd and long and Colin Simmons can just pin his ears back and come chase Michael Hawkins. Guys, Michael Hawkins is a great athlete. Colin Simmons is too. Like, you're not going to just outrun Colin Simmons every single time. So Oklahoma's going to have to do some stuff. And again, you can keep a tight end in. You can go 6-man protect. You can do some other stuff. But it's just one of those situations where I think Texas will be very smart. They're going to do all they can to just kind of mush rush and keep Hawkins from breaking out of the pocket. I think that's going to be their biggest fear, is that him making plays outside the framework of that offense.
Josh, is this the best defense Oklahoma's faced, or is Tennessee's group better than this?
I would say, it's a good question, George, because kind of like what you said, we don't know. Because for as much as I think Texas's offense has been tested by playing Michigan and how good I think Michigan is defensively, anyway, Michigan's offense is a circus. I mean, makes Oklahoma look fairly functional offensively at times. So, I don't know. Like, I would probably lean to Tennessee because I think Tennessee has such a thing you can lean on. That defensive line, I don't care who that defensive line's playing, they're going to create pressure. They're going to make problems for you. They're just too good. I don't know that Texas has that hallmark where you say, okay, yeah, that group, you're going to have a lot of trouble just scheming up something that's going to work against that group. I think Oklahoma can have success. I think they should have some. It's just a matter of if they can consistently do it, if they can find enough drives, find enough points, because I agree with you guys. Unless the defense scores some points, I have trouble believing Oklahoma gets more than 24 points in this game, and I think that's even probably a little optimistic. But again, if as good as the Oklahoma's defense is, they can keep that within range. It's just a matter of avoiding big mistakes, and at the same time, finding a few big plays, finding that J.J. Hester deep ball or Brendan Thompson or whoever it's going to be, And if they can do some of those things, hey, maybe you do pull off a surprise here.
Yeah, I just, it's going to be interesting exactly how they want to attack this in the passing game. And I think there's going to be a lot of feeling out through the first quarter of this thing on both sides. I wonder what Texas feels like their advantage is offensively. You think it has to be something in the passing game, but
I'd almost be okay with them just going, and I know that you want to take care of the ball. Turnovers are a massive part of this game, as they are in any game. I'd almost be like, just go balls to the wall first quarter, throw everything that you have. If you hit, maybe you do build a lead and maybe build some confidence. I don't know.
Maybe you get a turnover.
That would definitely not be the way that I think an offensive coordinator would look at it and go in and almost be reckless at a point. But I do think that, Michael Hawkins has, as you said, you brought it up, George, that we were talking in the office earlier. He's been extremely good, even going back to his senior year of taking care of the football. And
55 touchdowns, 3 interceptions as a senior at Frisco Emerson. That's about as good as it gets. I mean, and I get it. That's one thing playing high school football,
and another thing doing it in your second career start, making the first
track record of not turning the ball over is there.
It seems like it's there.
Yeah.
I just, you guys mentioned, the way that Oklahoma should play this game. The thing I like about Brent is I don't really get the sense that he is a ball control type guy.
Not at all.
He wants his offense to go out and run the offense. I don't think you're going to see OU, take the play clock down to 1 before they snap, try and get third and shorts all day. I just don't think they're built like that. And I don't think you can be in this game. I don't think there's no way you control this game. In this atmosphere, this environment, the momentum swings, I think both coaches realize, and let's face it, Steve Sarkisian has not done well in this game. Out of all the things he's done at Texas, this is one of his black eyes so far. So if he lost this one, and to me, that's the thing that's craziest about this. Texas is number 1, and they may not deserve to be there, but they might be there. I know as SEC Mike is calling them, they're the default team right now because nobody else can be number 1 in the SEC. I do like how they're. I don't know if I like it, but they're. I don't know if you've watched SEC Mike's podcast lately, but they're referring. Of course, they're Tennessee guys. They're referring to Josh Heupel as low T Heupel because he won't throw the ball more. Mike, if you're listening, I thought that was hilarious. But you can't be low T anything in this game. You've just got to let it go, and things are going to happen because you may be down. Some weird could happen. You may be down 20 at some point in this game.
To a certain extent, too. And I remember having these conversations back in
49. Nothing happens when you try and go in conservative.
Sure, that was. I don't even know what.
There's conservative with a plan, and there's just waving a white flag.
Yeah.
I mean, that 49-0 almost killed Jeff Lebby's career. I mean, that was such a shit show of a game and such a terrible plan offensively.
That would make Ron DeSantis look like he's somewhere in the middle as opposed to the right.
Hey, let's let him deal with the hurricane right now. Let's give him some support.
We respect Uncle Ron.
Okay. Just want to make sure we're giving him the proper respect.
I do think, though, that...
I think so. If you're in Florida, I hope you're driving.
Yeah,
I hope you're driving somewhere north.
Man, it's tomorrow morning I think they're getting wiped out.
Overnight and tonight. Our best wishes to Lieutenant Dan out there in the harbor of Tampa.
Lieutenant Dan is a star.
They saved
He's unbelievable.
The mayor, they just... stories just came out. The mayor...
She's lying. Oh. He's still there. There's people went and checked on him. He's still there. Unless those videos.
The mayor's
are from
trying
earlier.
to cover up Lieutenant Dan's boat.
Well, no, they're saying that they finally got him. The Tampa Bay police chief went down there this morning and basically was begging him.
Didn't he say he would go to a hotel if he got him a prostitute?
Yeah, if they got him a prostitute, I think he would go to a hotel. I don't know. Hopefully he gets out of there. I don't think he's going to survive if he tries to stay. But, I mean, I don't know. What were you saying? You were going to say, Josh.
Dan
you were saying something.
pot.
Sorry, we got sidetracked.
We talk about the conservative nature and the 49-0 and Jeff Lebby almost killed his career.
I remember what I was going to say. It's
it was you. Yeah.
So many times in this game, we came in here on the either the post game podcast or we would come back and do the unofficial 40, and it seemed like things started to kind of shift in. Maybe 18 was a little bit of the tipping point. Maybe 14, 15, somewhere around there even, that like I always felt like I would walk out of there, and maybe Texas fans say the same thing on the other side of it, but Texas was always seemed to be the more physical team. And over the last couple of years, I think OU's matched them from a physicality standpoint, and especially last year, it was rather apparent. Even in 21, it was apparent when they were making that comeback. And maybe it's because of the way OU was able to win those games. You say, yeah, OU was the more physical team, but I do think that has kind of shifted
48 and 21. Bit. So nobody was playing a lot of anything. No,
not yeah. That's true. That's true.
But OU did impose their will offensively up front in that game.
Yes.
I mean, all of a sudden they were able to just run the ball at the end of that game.
Kennedy Brooks.
Well, 2018 was when they destroyed Breckenhager in the championship game.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
And that was
the offensive line that was just a bunch of badasses.
That might be also.
I think
stupid statement, Eddie.
I think it's going to be but I think it's going to be. What's really interesting is I think this Oklahoma defensive line is the best they've had in some time, and this Texas offensive line is maybe the best that they've had in some time, and so that's a matchup that I'm just really interested. Cannon R. Mason Thomas, who's been really good in the fourth quarter, can he win some battles in this game? Ethan Downs was huge a year ago.
He was.
Dominic Williams, Jaden Jackson up the middle, DJ Terry, like all those guys have to have Grayson Halton, who's been really good this year. Like, can he get after the quarterback? Like, that's a huge part of it. And then on the flip side, the offensive line has not been very good this year, but maybe they can get some push in this game. Maybe they can run the ball a little bit more effectively. So this game, it's cliche, but the game is often won in the trenches. Whichever team, like Eddie said, is more physical usually wins this football game. If not every single. I mean, I need to find the stat, but it's like whichever team runs the ball more effectively wins
right.
The football game.
It almost. I think it's across the board. Yes, you win if you have more rushing. Like last year, it was Dylan Gabriel's legs that helped him win the rushing title in that game. But
I think there's a chance OU runs for more yards in this game than Texas and still loses, though, because I think like Michael Hawkins could get loose a few times. He could rush for 100 yards. And, they rush for 200 as a team. And I think Oklahoma's going to be able to stop the run, but they could still lose.
Look, you want to be at this game. You want to be there. You don't have tickets, though. You know where you need to go. It's the Game Time app. Go to gametime.co and download the app, the Game Time app, create an account, use the code ON3 for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account, redeem code ON3 for $20 off. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Look, it's a ticket brokerage. You're gonna pay some fees, but guess what? If you click in the all-in pricing, then you're gonna know what the fees are. There's gonna be no surprises when you pick your seat. You're gonna know exactly how much that seat or those seats are going to cost you. I'm looking at the app right now. By the way, you can go to the Thunder game tonight for $1 on the Game Time app. George, if you want to sneak over there.
The preseason game against Houston?
Yeah.
I love my
Adams?
Thunder, but not a big preseason basketball.
I think everybody's playing tonight, though.
Yeah, I have a lot of work to do, too.
That's true. It's OU Texas week. But you know what? If you can't stay, it'll only cost you $1.
I will say, too, I have been looking, though, at the home opener tickets for when the Thunder are playing real basketball. I've been looking at tickets on Game Time for that.
Now, I am looking directly inside the Cotton Bowl on the Game Time app as we speak. It's not going to be super cheap. The cheapest all-in ticket is $419.
Oh, boy.
And when I looked earlier in the week, the Texas side was more expensive than the OU side. Starting to level out a little bit, but the OU side, you can still. It looks like unfortunately, there's a lot more seats available on the OU side. So, I would just say this, please, if you're going to buy tickets on the secondary market, get them on the OU side. You don't want to sit in a bunch of Texas fans. There's plenty of tickets available. Go to the Game Time app, go download the Game Time app. Use that promo code ON3 for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. And lowest price guaranteed, priority. Game Time curation makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater. Zach Bryan's going to be at the BOK coming up pretty soon. You get tickets for that.
Yeah, December.
So that was the last concert I think I went to. I know you've been to another one since then.
No, I haven't been to another Zach Bryan concert, but I have been to a couple other concerts since then.
When's Hot to Go coming to concert?
I don't know. I think she's
probably not Oklahoma City.
I think she's facing a lot of criticism right now, apparently, because she wouldn't support one of the presidential candidates.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so people are mad at her about that.
She's smart for not doing that. Taylor Swift's getting killed.
Yeah,
for
she
it.
canceled a bunch of shows, I guess.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because
Damn.
her
Right.
fans are mad that she didn't pick a side.
Well,
or
I mean,
something.
she's got a song called Pink Pony Club. I think we know where she leans.
I don't know. She's from St. Louis.
All right, moving on. OU Texas. Josh, OU is in control of recruits this weekend,
They are.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
which we've talked about this before. Don't get too fired up like this is some big advantage, because I don't know how the rules are now, but essentially you can tell me if they've changed, but basically you get a ticket and you sit in your seat. There's no real interaction with the coaching staff in this game.
Yeah, there's nothing much you can do with it. It's just having them there. Now, I said this a couple years ago. For a long time, Florida and Georgia didn't have this exemption. Like they didn't, like recruits couldn't come. Like they used
couldn't
OU
invite
Texas as,
people. Yeah.
yeah, like so it's kind of a unique deal in that way. But I mean, guys, we know OU and Texas recruit a lot of the same players. The expectation to have a guy there on Saturday, in spite of his high school team meetings, it's going to be a lot of local guys. So it doesn't really matter if it's OU or Texas inviting people, except for commitments. Like that's really the biggest thing. Like, Ryan Fojay is going to be there for Oklahoma, Michael Fasusi, Cortland Guillory, all these guys that, OU fans are familiar with. They'll be there, and that's great. But with that exception, there's not much OU can do with it, from a visit standpoint. Now, I will say one of the cooler ones, Jaden O'Neal will be there. He's coming in from California. He's going to see his first OU Texas
Well, he doesn't
game.
have a football game to play, so he's got time on his hands.
That's still super weird. I talked to him a little bit about that today. Sound like they're still trying to work that out and figure out. For those that don't know, that missed the recruiting report on Monday, Jaden O'Neal's remaining 4 high school games of the regular season were forfeited by his opponents due to
It was protest,
the head coaches of each of these teams. Yeah, basically feeling some recruiting rules were broken by his team. I'm not claiming I know, but I've never seen anything like it, and it's a very unique circumstance. And I'm kind of shocked the coaches would make that move.
But, I mean, Jaden O'Neal, I think, as much as you've talked to him, he's a guy that's going to be a good representative for OU to talk to other. Like, if there's some, I don't know, receiver-wise, who you heard might be there, but obviously that's somebody you want talking to your receivers in the stands.
Oh, absolutely. And, you look at the guys that are going to be there. You've got, in his class, Mason James, Aljor Miles, Caden Finley, Jalen Pyle. Some of Oklahoma's biggest wide receiver targets. I would put James, Miles, and probably maybe Pyle. I would say those 3 are right there near the top of the board, along with guys like Zion Robinson and a few others. Also, our big guy Toa Katoa, he's going to be there. So Jaden O'Neal gets to buddy him up a little bit and try to make a new best friend to protect him for the years to come. But yeah, there are. Deuce Gerald, the big defensive lineman from Georgia, top 100 guy, he'll be there. He was also in Norman for the Tennessee game. So, again, I think Oklahoma is more of a player there than some people do. Zane Rowe, the big-time OU commitment in 2027. And then in 2025, I know a lot of people will ask, I expect that to be very commitment-heavy. Like, I don't think it's going to be a whole lot of new names. Andrew Babalola's not going to be there. He's announced he's not taking any trips until he makes his commitment. Caleb Burns, the recent offer, he's going to be at the Oregon-Ohio State game for his Oregon official visit. So there's just not a lot of 2025 targets out there. But I will say, as a tease, this week's Woke has a new offensive lineman that has spoken with the Oklahoma coaches in the 2025 class. So it feels kind of like a guy that maybe could be connected to this new 105 rule in Oklahoma, looking to dig a little deeper on some names that maybe not everybody knows and trying to, kind of build the depth of the roster.
Josh, how about defensive tackle? Anything brewing there?
Well, depending on how you look at Deuce, he's kind of a Grayson Halton type of player, I would say. He sees himself as an end, but I think he's already – I want to say he's listed at 255, 260 now as a high school kid. So, and he's class of 26. So something tells me he grows into a Halton type of guy. But so far, no, I don't have a lot of names confirmed. Obviously, Trent Wilson, the 2025 defensive lineman, I don't expect him to make it in from the DMV area. But yeah, again, I've got about 30 guys confirmed. By the time this is done, it'll probably be double that. So you'll add some names. There'll be some guys included. Like I would expect probably Noah Best from Midlothian. I would probably expect him to be there on the offensive line. And, we'll go through some names. But defensive line, is kind of a situation where the last 2 years, it's been fairly obvious at this point who OU is really going to target. And there's a few guys like that, like KJ Ford from Duncanville, some of these, some guys that obviously Oklahoma's been very involved with. But there aren't the numbers that we've seen over the last couple of years where you said, okay, yeah, OU's going with Alex Shieldknight and CJ Nixon, or, the year before David Stone and Nigel Smith. And, those kind of obvious names that you knew were going to be big targets for OU. It's going to be interesting to see how they cultivate some names and find some guys, because I don't think it's a particularly great group in the area, whereas 2027 you see a real move back in the right direction where there's going to be a lot of big-time guys, both kind of all over Oklahoma's normal region.
Now, what did you think about the transfer portal being shrunken a little bit? What do you see that affecting things? Do you think that that's a good thing for Oklahoma? Obviously everybody's going to make their adjustments to it, but it would seem to me like you would, if you're Oklahoma, you don't really like you would like a shorter period of time, because you pretty much identify the top guys and they get taken before everybody else. Might hurt you if you're scrambling at a position, but otherwise, I don't know. Is it wrong to think that that's a good thing for places like Oklahoma to shorten it?
I wonder a little bit if it helps you in two ways. Like for guys that are outgoing that are just automatically going to leave, I think it kind of lights a fire. So what your numbers are going to be. This guy, like, okay, we started, talking with him in October and November, and kind of got the feeling maybe he's wanting to try and go find playing time at a G5 or a smaller P4 or whatever it may be. And when you shorten that time, they don't get to stand on the fence quite as long. They're either in, they're out, whatever. But I also like it from the standpoint, kind of like what you're talking about, where there's less time for guys to be like, oh, I want to take one more visit. I want to do this. Most of the guys, the big-time portal guys, they take one or two trips and it's done. Like They might see two schools. So they don't need as much time. And I think a lot of times when you make it a bigger window, that's when Uncle gets involved, and that's when this guy gets involved. And you start seeing people jockeying for position or for control of that recruitment, rather than just like, this is the guy, Oklahoma or Alabama or Tennessee or whoever it may be. This is who they're recruiting. This is who they need to develop a relationship with. So I think it's good. These guys, it's not like high school. They don't need as much time to acquire information, because they pretty much know what they're looking for, whether it's playing time or NIL or whatever it is. They know the shortcuts. And so they don't need all the kind of pomp and circumstance that you see in high school recruiting.
We've seen some guys already declare for the portal. Is there anybody that that's intrigued, that's kind of made your radar pop up? Like, wonder if OU would be interested.
The only name that has kind of grabbed my attention is the Donovan McCauley kid from Indiana, the big wide receiver. I've heard his name come up a little bit. Big outside guy, would make a lot of sense for Oklahoma. Now, it's tough to gauge, guys, because if we were talking about this, I think last week on the pod. If Jaden, we assume Jaden Gibson comes back. Well, if Jalil Farouk chooses to come back, which you weren't initially planning for, okay, you've got a couple outside guys right there. Whatever Andrell Anthony's going to do. And again, Oklahoma's got a 5-man wide receiver class right now, and they were expecting, obviously Anthony, Farouk, and I'm forgetting J.J. Hester, all to be gone. Well, now, Hester's going to go, but the other two could absolutely return. So you wonder, how does that play out? What does that mean? What do they do with their numbers? But I do think they're going to want to find an outside guy, because clearly that's been a problem this year, and you don't want to rely on Andrell Anthony because we just don't know what OU's going to get out of him going forward. There's too many question marks. Jaden Gibson's going to be coming off a knee injury, so he's not going to be even full tilt in spring practice. So there's a lot of question marks there. But again, he's the one that catches my attention. Jaheim Otis, I know will have a lot of people excited. Guys, I don't know. Like, I always wonder a little bit about a guy that leaves a place like Alabama in the middle of the season trying to secure his red shirt. I mean, like, I'm not saying there's not some logic to it, but I wonder a little bit how a coaching staff that handles this stuff like Oklahoma does is going to feel about Jaheim Otis. Like, just kind of leaving his team as, even though they lost to Vanderbilt, Alabama's still absolutely in the national title race, and to walk away from that seems, I don't know, I think that's going to rub some coaching staffs wrong.
I take it, I saw my guy Tyson Ford declare for the portal. I looked at his follows, and it doesn't appear like every coach in the country is following him. It seems like maybe he's leaving because he didn't play that much at Notre Dame. So I'm guessing I won't have to take a special trip to St. Louis again as we planned last time to do his commitment.
I was trying to think of who that was, but when you
he was the guy that he
St.
was
Louis,
going to commit to Oklahoma, and then
okay.
he chose Notre Dame.
Okay, I missed that. He's been one of the guys that has entered the portal already.
Yeah. And he's got 3 years left.
If I remember right, Kerry, you were packing up, weren't you? You were getting ready to leave.
And we still follow each other. He was nice enough to say, "Hey, just wanted to let you know I'm going to Notre Dame instead of Oklahoma."
That. Good dude.
Yeah,
we would be remembering him in a much different light had you got up to like Miami or God forbid that you gotten all the way to St. Louis and then showed up and he was
we've done worse.
Surprising.
Thank you, Mr.
Jacob Phillips.
Yeah,
but he actually
Mr.
committed.
He did commit to Oklahoma.
He did commit to OU.
But the whole time we were there, it was like, okay, here's his trainer and his handler over here. He doesn't want him to go to Oklahoma.
Yeah, it was Oprah's high school.
It was Oprah's high school. It was a kick-ass high school.
Had some great tacos with what's his name over in Nashville too.
Woody.
Woody.
Yeah,
from over at Rivals.
Yeah, I think Woody was the whole time. He was like, "You guys, thanks for making the trip, but I don't know if he's going to go to Oklahoma."
Yeah, that was. But
it was just odd. Well, and I even threatened him at the end of the interview.
That was in 2016, though, and we watched the Cubs come back.
Well, remember, it was the Cubs, and remember
in the NLDS, it was right around this time of the year.
We just made a split-second decision. Like, we were at practice, we were interviewing Baker. And then I think we heard from Josh, like, hey, this is getting real for Oklahoma. He's going to commit tomorrow at his high school or in a couple of days. I think it was the next day, so we just got in the car. You watched the Cubs the entire way.
Is that made their way to a championship? I think that's the time that we stopped at I think it was like a Marriott or something, and the only room they had was like the honeymoon
handicap
suite.
Rude.
I thought it was the honeymoon suite, and it had the it had like a
in the living room. It had
like
a hot
bathtub or a hot tub in the middle of the room.
There are certain residential inns that have that. There's one in Texas, like right before you get to Louisiana, I think, like Marshall, Texas, or something like that.
I think that's over in East Texas.
Yeah, that's way out there. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I stayed when I went to the Walmart sweatpants bowl. I ended up getting a room there, and it had the hot tub in the living room. And all I could think was, how many porn stashes have been in that?
I just would not get in that. I think that's probably the best way to say.
There was thankfully a shower. There was other bathing options. So anyway, but no, I saw that and I thought, oh, I wish he was good and he was coming to Oklahoma. We could finally, get this thing together. But
you guys, what you should have done if it did happen. Like, replay that interview. Just like you be you then, I'll be me now, and like just relive the interview. He'd go back to his high school days.
Be like that picture when like siblings, recreate their photos from when they're 8.
Exactly.
Yeah. But they're now like 30.
And he's a great interview. It's a shame, because he would have been a lot of fun. Tyson, I went up, guys. I don't know if you remember when I went up and interviewed him. I was going to see Luther Burden. Like when Luther Burden was still committed to Oklahoma, and I want to say that night, and Eddie, I remember sending you that video, and I was like, you're going to love this. I think he had 4 touchdowns for like 260 yards. It was Luther Burden when he was at Cardinal Ritter, and they played this team in the playoffs. And guys, it was a bunch of country white kids trying to chase Luther Burden around for 4 quarters, and it was brutal. It was brutal to watch. Like that he was so far and away the best athlete they'd ever seen in their lives.
Okay, so I love transfer portal season. Like when it gets here, like those videos on YouTube just do monster numbers. Like I love it. It's a lot of fun. To me, it's definitely better than portal season, Eddie. It's definitely better than the real signing day now.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Like the real signing day is nothing anymore.
Well, the December thing has just become kind of everybody's committed. There's not a whole lot of intrigue outside
you've had
of a
the early
couple
signing
guys.
period. By the way, what is the proposal for the signing days, Josh? I've been so busy paying attention to other stuff like the
NLI is
NIL
now
stuff and
basically dead, right? Is that
they
kind of
killed
the way
it.
So there's not going to be a December signing period anymore?
No, there's going to still be a period. There's still going to be a signing period. It's going to be December 4th. But what basically all they'll be signing is like scholarship aid or stuff like that. Like it's going to be, they're just taking the national letter of intent out of the whole conversation. And I mean, it makes sense, I guess, because in this era, it's not, the national letter of intent was initially built to be a 1-year-long contract with the school you sign with. Well, then they took out the transfer rules, so you don't have to. There's no penalty to pay, like the NLI. God, those two things need to be farther apart. The NLI, I from everything I read and understand, it just lost all of its legal meaning. Like there was no reason to sign it because it didn't accomplish anything, and you weren't bound to anything you were signing anyway. Like nobody was. It's not that you weren't bound; it's just no one was keeping that score anymore.
Well, and with what's getting ready to happen with the court cases and the back pay and all that stuff, basically your NLI is going to be your contract with the school, that whatever they're paying you, and then if you want to leave, you just don't get paid anymore. So that's what keeps kids going to a school or not. But And by the way, I know people don't like hearing about it, so I've kind of. I read those articles, but it's very confused. Like I don't dig into it deep enough, George. I don't know if you even have time to mess with that stuff.
It seems like
it's like
everything
they say
that's out now too. It's like, yeah, well, we'll see what the court case says.
Yeah, Well, and that's been that way for a long time. But like I heard somebody, I think it was SportsCenter this morning. They were interviewing Pete Thamel, and he was talking about this could take place in 2025. But from what I saw. This won't even the people, because this is a class action lawsuit basically. So student athletes have to join the class action lawsuit. It's kind of like the reason that you saw those commercials. What was the military thing about the water being bad? You remember what I'm talking about?
No.
The Camp Lejeune.
Oh, the commercials?
Yes, the reason they run those commercials is because they're trying to get people to join the class action suit so that, so the payouts get bigger or whatever. But that's what the NCAA has to do is they have to take on all these class action lawsuit members, and they have to the end of 2025 to do that. So I don't understand how they're going to start in 20. Anyway, like I said, I know you guys aren't that interested in it, but I do find the information that's coming out just kind of, I don't understand when that would start.
Now, guys, something I will ask you, because, I know you guys have probably more insight into this aspect of it than I do. In fact, not probably, I know you do. The ruling in the Northern California courts where they're saying, they're going to pay all these damages to ex-players, it's $2.75 billion or whatever. Okay, you can think whatever you want of that. That's a whole nother deal. But I thought it was interesting where they're seeming to be moving in a direction where they're saying the quote unquote salary cap is going to be something like 22 million per roster.
Right.
I guys, is that that's higher than I thought they were going to go. Like I'm a little surprised that that's the number they seem to be settling on.
I think if they've been settled at 20 million was the initial thing that came out. So. Mm-hmm. I think they're going to go above that for quarterbacks and, high profile guys. I mean,
now do you have to spend that amount?
Well, no, I mean, and some schools won't be able to. I mean,
I was about to say, there's a lot of schools that won't be able to.
And I think they're just trying to keep some schools from making it 40, where other schools are only doing 20.
So it's a cap. It's a salary cap.
They're trying to, but that's
for as far as what the schools themselves can pay.
Yeah.
But like, Michael Hawkins can go out and get extra money from Dr. Pepper if he wants to. Which,
yeah.
By the way, there's no better example of how football has changed than the Dr. Pepper thing. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, because it's OU Texas week, Dr. Pepper's doing a big social media campaign with Quinn Ewers and Michael Hawkins Jr. And our guy Pete Nakos put this out yesterday, that was originally supposed to be Jackson Arnold in the ad, and now it's Michael Hawkins. But it's like, geez. I mean, I know stuff happens. If you lose your job as a quarterback, it's bad, and there's all kinds of stuff that goes with it, and it's probably a little embarrassing. I mean, we saw Spencer Rattler go through it. But then when you lose a national ad campaign, it's just like, man, this stuff is really serious.
Well, and it begs the question, like, if Quinn Ewers was hurt and Arch Manning was expected to start this week, what do they do with that? Like, is Arch then in the commercial? Like, I'd be interested to see, just because, they'd love the opportunity to put him in that commercial.
Let's say OU wins this game, and then by some course of things happening, like Jackson Arnold is the quarterback against Alabama later in the season, and that ends up being like a top 5 matchup. Do they have a Jalen Milroe Jackson Arnold commercial that comes out?
Probably. I mean, I think
it's just a weird world.
Jackson's already done some stuff with Dr. Pepper too.
Right, yeah.
So,
but yeah, you lose a job, you lose a sponsorship. That's how it rolls these days. It's crazy.
I mean, what a just batshit first 5 games this has been. Like, we spent so much time talking about getting to the bye week, and if OU was going to be 4-1, how good was that going to be? Just kind of getting into the Cotton Bowl, give yourself a chance. And they've done that, but there's so many other like storylines that go into the 4-1 and how bad things have been. I mean, I still just can't get over the fact that if they don't pull it out of their ass and find a way improbably to win that Auburn game, how different the last 12 days would have been for us.
Well, and I think
the conversations that we would be having.
I think that's all Brent was saying yesterday. Like, it wasn't that this season is back on. Well, not that the team is back on track, but the season is back on track. Like, they now have a chance to go out and do the things that they want to do.
Sure.
Josh took great offense to that for some reason. Like,
I think that Kerry's trying to trigger me.
I am. I mean, it's like he wasn't trying to say like everything's fixed, but you kind of took it that way.
Well, like, back on track, and maybe it's just me being too literal. Like, back on track sounds like, okay, we're on the right path now. You won, and that's great. But guys, that game plays out the way it does down to the last 5 minutes. OU wins that game. What? I mean, I hate to go. Let me think about it. Hugh Freeze, but there is maybe 10 times out of 100 that plays out the way it does. Like, that doesn't fix that you got largely. I mean, guys, I can't get over the number. Oklahoma had 11 first downs. 11. That's horrible. Like that's just not going to get it done. And again, I get a lot of what we said earlier. They were playing conservative. They were trying to keep the ball. Like, I understand there's qualifiers to it, but it's just like, I don't know, like, found a way to get out of there with a win. Okay, got it. But like, on track, just, I don't know, that it just seemed off to me. And I know I 100% will acknowledge I made too much of it. Like, I was kind of, I don't know. I don't know what headspace I was in, but like, it seemed a poor representation of what actually happened.
Just to be clear, we're having a offline conversation here, but Josh kind of was like, he didn't like that part of the press conference yesterday where Brent was talking about things being back on track. And I'll say this though, Josh, I mean, like, Brent has been about as transparent as you can be as a head coach. I mean,
I do
outside
agree.
outside of just answering George's question yesterday about what they discovered when they did their self-scouting.
But even in that, I thought he gave somewhat of a revealing answer in terms of them trying to add some different stuff to the offense.
But I mean, and no coach is going to do that, but Brent's been pretty honest and open with us on
mean,
what their issues have been, what they're trying to do, what they're not doing, what they need more of.
His press conference 2 weeks ago before the Auburn game after the Tennessee loss was one of the more refreshing things.
Yeah, it was burn it down. We have to get better.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have any problems with the way Brent's operating or the way that he's got his defense playing balls to the wall. I mean, it's impressive.
You know what's crazy? And I saw this on the board chat we're doing on Inside Texas.
Go ahead.
Is somebody was saying that, was one of the Texas fans was talking about how Texas is 17-2 in their last 19. And they're like, how come OU fans are so upset with what's going on in Oklahoma? They're 14-4 in their last 18 games. Like, OU's not that far off. And
easy, Lincoln.
Well, I'm just saying from like, that doesn't mean they're going to go win this weekend and whatever, but like, it is kind of crazy to think like they are 14-4 in their last 18. Like they have been performing pretty well.
I don't think that I would have just immediately gone to 14-4 if you would have said what their last 18 games have been.
No,
I don't think that would even have crossed my mind. I would have, I guess, just complete knee-jerk reaction would have gone, are they 10-8? And obviously that's not right, but it just is kind of interesting that maybe that is still trajectory-wise headed in the right direction. And certainly if they were able to get out of Saturday and win, then the tenor is definitely different than what it would have been had they lost to Auburn and everything moving forward.
Oh, yeah.
There is, and it's kind of like you guys were talking about last night.
Are they going to beat anybody but Maine? I mean, that's what you were thinking halfway through that game.
The opportunity that's there, even if the chips are stacked against them, is certainly grand if you can get out of there with a win. And even if you play well, I think that there is some things, and I know that people don't want to hear this, you could still get me to a point of, okay, well then maybe you rebound. You play well this weekend. Maybe the offense does look just halfway better than what it has been. That's a major step in the right direction. And then you get ready for the rest of the SEC slate that, I don't know, maybe there are some more winnable games out there than we previously thought, certainly starting with South Carolina in 2 weeks.
By the way, can I...
Guys, I want to ask a question.
Yeah,
I think it just occurred to me. It's something that's interesting for me, I guess, maybe just me. If you're Oklahoma, would you rather have, and I know people are going to answer as soon as I say the first part, would you rather have the win or would you take a loss and know Michael Hawkins is your future? Like, okay, we won, but we won ugly. We still don't really know what we've got on offense, but like we found a way to win 21-17. Or would you rather say they lost, 31-28, but Michael Hawkins had 400 yards of offense and looked like a freaking dude? Like, I think that's a really interesting point for this program going forward.
I think beating Texas at this point, as heavily favored as they are, everything that goes into the way that they would win, I think that like you would have to say that if they were to win on Saturday, Michael Hawkins is a part of that offensively, unless Texas just goes out and turns the ball over like 7 times or something. But yeah. I think that you would take the win and everything that like. I wouldn't say 50% of it nowadays in college football. Obviously, wins and losses the most important. But there is like this, I think, narrative just within, and we've seen it in the recruiting world, in getting wins over guys, whether he's going to turn out and be a great player when he gets to Norman or not, being able to take that and use it to your advantage, I think a win would go a long way. And especially with the, like the easement or whatever you want to call this intro into the SEC. I think going and playing well and doing it on a national stage would be just as important. And I don't know, maybe in a weird way, I would say that like maybe you could put off the quarterback conversation for another week, even if you had to come back and answer that at some point later on in the season. I don't know.
Let me ask you this. If the offense does struggle and let's say they only score defensively or something on Saturday, does OU and do you? I almost hate putting this out there, but if Michael Hawkins did struggle, you have to open up the quarterback competition again.
That would be a disaster.
Yeah,
I think
that's worst case.
That is the last thing you want coming out of this game.
Unless he gets injured, I don't think you got to ride Hawkins. You got to give him the opportunity that, in a way, you gave a small sample size to Jackson, and he proved. with the turnovers that he just
against
couldn't
lesser
do it.
competition.
Yeah, which I think makes it even worse for Jackson, right?
Yeah, right.
I think
you've almost got to make him sink you, kind of like Jackson did against Tennessee. Like, make it just so bad that you can't put him back out there.
And I think it's also naive to think that, to a certain extent, even though he has had a history of taking care of the football, that Michael Hawkins is going to go, 4 quarters on Saturday or, however long the rest of the season goes. He's going to have low points, and he is going to turn the ball over. You just hope that you have a defense that's good enough to be able to bail you out, and you don't have to count on them every single time that you do put yourself in that position.
I do think that there is going to be this segment out there, and I keep telling OU fans to get ready for kind of the national narrative on things, but I think there's going to be some people nationally that if OU does pull this out, that they will just say, well, it's clear that Texas was they were a pretender. Like they just weren't. They were at number 1, but they really hadn't beaten anybody. We've seen this coming, all that kind of stuff. So just kind of prepare yourself for that. But you should not care at all. Like, you beat Texas, you beat Texas. Let the national people. I don't even want to start.
If OU wins this game, they're in the playoff hunt. Like,
yes,
squarely
absolutely
in the playoff hunt. Like,
they should be back
It's
in the top 10.
amazing how the two opposites are of losing the game versus getting yourself back into a.
I mean, shit. If they win,
what did Vanderbilt move up to this
third
week?
quarter in the Auburn game? I'm thinking, going through my brain, like, okay, we're going to be looking at an offensive coordinator change going into the next week. I think the bigger question is going to be OU's continued troubles on the road. Like, is Brent going to be the guy moving forward? It's just crazy how the entire conversation can shift by truly a couple plays here and there. I mean, I go back as great as the Kip 6 was. Samuel Omosigo, if he doesn't make the tackle for the loss on the 2nd and 2, OU's losing the game. Even if Auburn, the pick 6 was the only thing that could bail OU out. Even if OU gets the ball back offensively, I don't think that they're going to take the lead. I don't think that they're putting a drive together to score to take the lead.
Yeah, Vanderbilt's not even in the top 25 after beating Alabama.
Well, they're 3-2 and they lost to Georgia Southern. So
yeah,
I mean, I still can't believe
Georgia State, get it right.
Georgia State. Whatever.
Josh, was there a part of you, and you might have known this, but I was up in Stillwater at the OSU game, and we're watching kind of everything unfold in Nashville as that game goes down. It's like, who the hell is Vanderbilt's offensive coordinator? He is having an unbelievable day. And then you look it up, and it's Tim Beck. It's like, oh, my God.
The guy that I think has been more maligned than any offensive coordinator in the history of Middle America, Tim Beck.
It's crazy.
And that offense looked awesome.
Yeah, the Diego Pavia kid. He's not a great quarterback, but he's just serviceable enough, and they don't ask him to do just everything out of his ability. Or, he probably doesn't have a whole lot of ability. He has ability. I don't know what I'm trying to say.
He has ability, but his best ability.
Not going to win the Heisman.
His limitations.
Best ability,
right?
His best ability is to be able to praise God and follow that with an F-bomb.
And I think that's special.
That was awesome.
You people that get mad at
invited
Eddie,
to New York just for that speech.
All you people that
just
get
for
mad
giving that speech
at Eddie and George for dropping GDs every once in a while, you got to admit that's a lot worse. Can't praise God and then drop an F-bomb right after.
I've heard many priests do it before.
Anyway.
That was awesome.
But guys, the thing about that game to me was it wasn't fluky. Vanderbilt was fighting Alabama in the trenches. It wasn't
terrible, but their defense has problems.
I mean, Joel Klatt just
problems.
Absolutely
he torched them.
To say that they are basically Oklahoma, from the Riley era it's kind of leaves me speechless.
Nick Saban just loved that comment too. Because I don't care what you say. I mean, I know he still has a really strong interest in that football team because he recruited most of those guys. But there's that human side of them that's just like, see, you can't do it without me. You built the statue for a reason.
Everybody wants to I think people trying to pretend that Nick Saban wouldn't feel that way. He's not a robot. He's human. He wants people to recognize how great he was, and people burn him for that Vanderbilt thing. Playing at Vanderbilt was never a problem for Nick Saban. I heard somebody say, I can't remember where I heard it.
It was
Nick
like-
Saban
it
would have
was like
firebombed
a-
that stadium in the fourth quarter.
it was
like
like
he
an
would not have allowed
Oklahoma-
that loss to happen.
It was like an Oklahoma game at Kansas. Like the entire stadium was full of Alabama fans. I mean, we didn't see the Vanderbilt side, but like the student section, there were a lot there. But there's no way that that game was not built for Vanderbilt to win it in any shape or form, and they did.
I still think Alabama can win the national championship.
Yeah, I do too.
Same.
Their defense has got to get better, though.
Yeah.
Which makes like
Jalen Milroe is such a problem.
The biggest indictment over the weekend was not Alabama, though. It was Missouri.
Missouri. But is Missouri who we thought that they were?
Yeah.
Kind of.
Well, did you think that they were an overrated, quite possibly shitty team?
I don't think that they're shitty. I just don't think that they're
Not
not a top 10 team.
They're not a playoff team. I don't think.
No. And with their schedule, they don't have a chance.
I
to
think
come back.
I think A&M is also better than people realize.
Yeah,
I think
their
A&M might
defensive
be
line's really good.
A&M
Yeah.
might be the best team in the SEC.
The A&M, you go back to that Notre Dame game.
I still think
A&M's
Georgia.
not
I
the
think
best.
Texas and Georgia are both better than A&M.
Yeah.
And I think Alabama might be better.
I think
than
it's
A&M.
it's Georgia, Alabama, and Texas are in the one tier, and then you have like 8 teams. But
Yeah.
Well, Missouri did beat Vandy in double overtime.
I will
so-
say I'll give credit too to I thought what Ole Miss did going on the road, coming off of the loss the week before to Kentucky. I thought that was pretty impressive. I don't know how good I don't think South Carolina is anything great, but I thought that was pretty impressive. They kind of went out there and kicked their ass.
I mean, you want to talk about like what we see OU go through defensively, like how amazed we were like at that Tennessee game and the Auburn game for the defense to just keep coming back and coming back when the offense is just terrible. Kentucky is literally a program built on that style of play. Like their defense knows they're getting no help, and yet they play as well as anybody in the country without an offense. Like they're built for that shit. It makes me appreciate watching them even more.
Oh, they walk out every time, and they're like, if we give up more than 17, we're not winning this game. Like,
Yeah.
that's not going to happen.
Like, you're tired? Screw it. Your offense ain't going to help you. Go back out there and get another stop.
I was also, I would say, not surprised with what happened in Fayetteville. I think Tennessee's good, and they're obviously headed in the right direction, trajectory-wise under Heupel, but everything that we talked about on the Monday Rewind, Josh, just in that, like, you kind of put out a little bit of a blueprint, and Arkansas just didn't turn the ball over. They were able to take advantage where OU was not.
I think Tennessee's in trouble
Yep.
for that too, Josh. I think everybody's going to put a light box against Tennessee and, play over the top on them in the secondary.
Harry, it kind of feels like, do you remember like late in 2000 when it seemed like everybody was finally starting to catch up to OU's offense a little bit, and Heupel had the arm thing and wasn't quite right. Like, and I don't even mean to draw that parallel because of the Heupel connection, but like, I always remember that they're like, okay, they're playing this umbrella coverage. They're just going to force everything to be in front of them, and Oklahoma's going to have to run the ball and be patient and that kind of stuff.
They stopped playing zone because they realized that Josh Heupel would carve up any zone that you put in front of him.
Yep.
And I think that was after the A&M game.
It just seems like Brent kind of put out a manual, like, okay, this is how you do this. This is how you can manage this. And if you have the right athletes, and people like Arkansas doesn't have Oklahoma athletes, but Arkansas in the SEC, they got good football players. There's no doubt about it. And they frankly do a pretty good job. I think the DC, whether Pittman saves his job or not, I think the DC made himself some money in that Tennessee game.
Tennessee still has to play Alabama, Kentucky, and Georgia.
Yeah, they play.
And
They got
finish
Florida
with
this
Vanderbilt.
weekend. That'll be interesting.
Florida
to see
this week, and then
how they
Alabama.
bounce back.
Is Alabama next week? I think
Yes.
that's part
Yes.
of the October 19th slate. That this is a super fascinating 2-week stretch for Texas. Like, I know that I would say that I think Texas is quote unquote back, or whatever you want to call it. These next 2 weeks, you go 2-0. I think I would officially be bought in of saying
they could win it all.
they can win the national championship this year, which would, obviously, would it be the? I don't want to have to say that. I'll put it that way. I don't want to have to say that.
I don't think they're going to beat Georgia. I just don't. I don't think Georgia's going to lose another game this year.
What would the percentage chances be, Josh, of Texas going 2-0, 1-1, 0-2?
I would say 0-2 is like 20%. Like, I mean, it's possible, but I don't think it's very likely.
Sure.
1-1, I would say is like 50%, 60%. And then I would say 2-0 is probably similar, probably 15, 20%. Guys, I didn't get I had to go early last week, and so I didn't really get to throw in much on that Georgia-Alabama game. Guys, I don't know about you. I came away from that game feeling better about Georgia than I did Alabama, because I felt like Alabama threw some stuff at Georgia they weren't ready for about 2 quarters. And then once Georgia kind of got the feel for it and said, okay, this is what you want to do here, Georgia shut it down, and then they just went up and down the field, and Carson Beck kind of found his rhythm.
I mean, if Ryan Williams doesn't have one of the greatest plays that you've seen in a game, like, Georgia's going to win that football game.
Yeah. Here's something, too, and we got to get out of here because we've got some stuff to do with Texas' side of things in the studios. But what's interesting to me is, like, I'm going through all these schedules and I'm looking at it. Everybody at the start of the season, they're like, oh, Texas got it easy. And, like, why is OU schedule so tough? Like, why are they punishing OU? It has been such a living, breathing schedule in the SEC this year. Like, you look at Texas, everybody said, oh, well, all they got to do is get through OU and Georgia and Michigan when it started. And that's not even the SEC. But now they have Oklahoma, they have Georgia, then they have Vanderbilt, then they have Arkansas, then they have Kentucky, then they have A&M. I'm leaving out Florida. But, like, that is not an easy schedule the rest of the way for Texas.
No.
OU's is much tougher.
Can you imagine if, like, that A&M Texas game in College Station is for, like, an SEC berth, like a championship game berth, which it could be, because A&M doesn't have a particularly hard run in.
Well, they're the only 3-0 team in the SEC right now.
I know.
That's what I was going to say earlier. If OU wins on Saturday, I don't think that this would happen, but not only are they in the playoff hunt, all of a sudden they're like they control their own destiny to the SEC championship game.
Let's slow down. Let's slow down.
Let's take a deep breath.
Again, I don't think that's going to happen.
I know what you mean, though.
But it's like, it's true.
It will not be lost on me when OU takes the opening drive and
goes 3-out.
No, scores, goes up 7-0, and you start having those thought processes, and then you look up and it's 49-7 at the end of the game.
Is it more likely that they more likely they score on the opening drive or go 3-out?
I think OU's going to keep it close. I don't know what close means. Does that mean that they're going to have the ball in the fourth quarter to win the game?
A single-digit win for Texas is I think
this is not
the ceiling here.
This is not good to say, but I think, like, the bet of the century right now is OU and the points.
Yeah.
But I don't think that OU wins the game. Well, I'll end it there.
You also, what was the line you had for the Auburn prediction? I'm picking Oklahoma, but I think Auburn wins the game.
And I was absolutely correct. I damn near got the score
How is
right,
that
by the way.
almost correct? How is
by
that
the
correct?
way, I had OU 27-23.
Okay.
I mean,
you were a safety away.
Well, you also covered your ass by saying, I think Auburn wins the game.
And they should have, if they don't throw the Kip 6.
I mean, it was, you're right.
It's maybe one of the greatest calls of all time.
Don't give him credit.
He was pretty
But
right.
I was right.
He was.
Oh, you hit the money line, and they covered.
See, I feel like I'm currently the devil on Eddie's shoulder. Like, I think he can hear what I'm saying, but he's like, no, it can't go that badly. Like, I am just too negative. He has balance to him, and I have lost all balance.
Look, it's early in the season. We don't know what the hell's going to happen Saturday. We don't know how good Texas really is.
I think last weekend kind of proved that, especially in like the week-to-week, this college football thing has become, anybody can beat anybody to a certain extent. Not like Vandy beating Alabama every weekend, but I do think that Arkansas and Tennessee, those types of games, they're going to happen a lot. Just look at what's happening in Stillwater. Look at what's happening in Lawrence, Kansas.
Oh, God. I'm so glad we don't cover OSU. Anyway, that's going to do it for us. That's the Unofficial 40 presented by Schwab Meat Company. SchwabMeat.com. Online orders over $75 get free shipping. Use that code Soonerscoop.com. We're out of here. We'll see you guys next week after OU Texas and the madness that is soon to follow. So thanks for listening. We'll be back here next week for another edition of the Unofficial 40 podcast right here on Soonerscoop.com.